Okay, guys, so we are finally done with circles and we are getting into area. The first lesson, we're going to focus on areas of squares and rectangles. I know we usually skip the do now, but I want to take a minute and actually go over the properties of a square and a rectangle. So if you remember, let's do the rectangle first. In a rectangle, the opposite sides are congruent. We also know the opposite sides are parallel. We know that all angles are right angles. And not only are the diagonals congruent are congruent and they bisect each other, which means all four little parts of the diagonals are congruent. Okay, now square, remember the square was the queen bee. The square had all of the properties. So in a square, opposites, not just opposite sides are congruent, all sides are congruent. All angles are right angles. The diagonals are perpendicular, which means we have right angles in the middle. Similar to a rectangle, the diagonals are not only congruent, they also bisect each other, which means all four parts of these are equal. And if you remember, the diagonals bisect the angles, which means these are all 45. Degrees. There we go. All right. Now, when we talk about area, do you guys remember back from elementary school, middle school, all the times you spoke about it? You'd find the area. Area was inside, perimeter was outside, and you say, okay, well, the area is, let's say, 50 centimeters, squared. Why? Why is it 50 centimeters squared? Why are you saying that squared at the end? Well, it means that it's square units. What does that mean? It means when we're finding the area, we're literally figuring out how many 1 by 1 squares can fill a space, how many 1 by 1 squares could fill a space. But obviously, we're not going to sit there and count the 1 by 1 squares. That's why the mathematicians came up with formulas. So we know, let's start off with a rectangle first. Area of a rectangle, back in the day, you used to say length times width. Length times width is great. I'm going to go for base times height. So if there's your L, there's your W, it's length times width, or B times H. There you go. Now, if you remember, the perimeter is the outside. We're literally adding all the sides. So where top and bottom are the same and left and right are the same. So the perimeter is going to be base plus height plus height. Or 2 base plus 2 height. Now a square is a rectangle. So base times height also works for a square. But in a square, your base and height and all your sides are the same. So the area of a square, instead of saying base times height, we're just going to say one side squared. And the perimeter, since all the sides are the same, is going to be side plus side plus side plus side, or 4 times the length of one side. Okay, so now let's talk about this for the rectangle. We want to find the perimeter, we want to find the area. So in a rectangle, remember, opposite sides are equal in length. So the perimeter is going to be 16 plus 16 plus 24 plus 24. It's all the sides added up. So 16 plus 16 is 32, 24 plus 24 is 48, 32 plus 48 is 80 centimeters. Now the area is going to be our base times the height. So the area is going to be, our base is 24, our height is 16. And I'm going to be very honest with you, it doesn't matter which one's the base, which one's the height, because the height always has to be made with a right angle. Height always has to be made with a right angle. But regardless, every single side makes a right angle. So technically, all of these sides are the height. So now the area is going to be 24 times 16, which is 384 centimeters squared. So the perimeter was 80 centimeters. The area was 384 centimeters squared. So focus here, perimeter, we don't square the units, the measuring units. For area, we do. All right, number 2, it says, if the area of a rectangle is 51 meters squared and the width is 6 meters, what is the length? Okay, so the area of a rectangle, so we're talking about a rectangle, but this time they're telling us the area. So the area is 51. They're saying the width is 6. What is the length? Okay, so this time I'm going to use the formula area equals length times width, because that's what they're talking about. Now the area they told us is 51. So instead of the A, I'm going to put in 51. And then we're going to have 6 times x. We're solving for x, so we're going to divide by 6 on both sides. And now we can say x is equal, if you want to say 51 over 6, I would reduce that. So I would divide by 3. And we would get, what is that, 17? Yeah, 17. That would be 17 over 2 meters. Or you could say x is equal to 8.5 meters, whatever you feel more comfortable with. Okay, next one. It says if the area of a rectangle is 120 inches squared and the length is 2 more than the width, what is the perimeter? Oh boy. So let's come up with our diagram here. So here, once again, they're telling us the area is 120. And now they're saying, go back, the length is 2 more than the width. The length is 2 more than the width. So if the length is more than the width, that means the width is less. So I'm going to call the width x. And the length is 2 more than x. So we're going to say x plus 2. Now, area is equal to length times width. So the area is going to equal x times x plus 2. Well, we know our area is 120, so it's going to be 120 is equal to x times x plus 2. I'm going to distribute this x in, and I'm going to say 120 is equal to x squared plus 2x. Subtract that 120 on to the other side because we're going to have to factor. And now, how did I know we're going to have to factor? I knew we were going to have to factor because I have an x squared there. So now I need factors of 120 that add to positive 2. So that's going to be positive 12 and negative 10. Positive 12 times negative 10 is a negative 120. 12 plus negative 10 is 2. So we're going to say x plus 12, x minus 10 equals 0. So x plus 12 equals 0, x minus 10 equals 0. X is going to equal negative 12, x will equal 10. Now, we are allowed to have a negative x. What we're not allowed to have is when you plug in to have a negative length. So that's why we are canceling out that negative 12. So we get x is equal to 10. And now let's go back, find the perimeter. Okay, so we know the length is going to be 10 plus 2, which is 12. And we're going to get x, which is just 10. So the left and right are 10, top and bottom are 12. Perimeter is going to be 10 plus 10 plus 12 plus 12. And if we add that all up, we are going to get 44 inches. Now, mind it's not squared because we're not finding the area. That's the perimeter. Okay, next one. The ratio of the length to the width of a rectangle is 5 to 6. If the perimeter is 110, find the area. So I'm drawing a rectangle. The ratio of the length to the width is 5 to 6. Now think back to Algebra 1. The minute you take numbers out of a ratio and put them into a diagram, you want to put x along with it. So we're going to say 5x to 6x. And like I said before, it does not matter which side is 5x and which side is 6x. We know top and bottom are the same, left and right are the same. Now it's saying the perimeter is 110, find the area. Well, the perimeter means we add up all the outside. So we're going to say 5x plus 5x plus 6x plus 6x equals the perimeter, which is 110. So we're going to have 22x is equal to 110. Divide by 22 on both sides. X is equal to 5. Now, let's use that x and plug it in. So we're going to get a base of 30. Oh, no, a base of 25, sorry. A height of 30. So the top bottom is 25, the top is 25, right is 30, the left is 30. Now we want to find the area. Well, area is equal to base times height, or length times width. So the area is going to be 25 times 30. So the area will equal 750, what is it, feet squared. All right, the diagonal of a square is 10. Find the perimeter, find the area. Okay, so let's come up with a square. They're saying the diagonal is 10. Now remember about a square, all the sides are congruent, all the angles are right angles, but the diagonals also bisect the angles. So we actually have two 45, 45, 90 triangles here. Now, I'm going to take one of these 45, 45, 90 triangles right here. I'm going to redraw it. We know the hypotenuse is 10. We know opposite the 45s are x and x, and opposite the 90 is x root 2. So our equation is going to be x root 2 is equal to 10. Divide by root 2. Multiply by root 2. X is equal to 10 root 2 over 2. X is equal to 5 root 2. So we know all these side lengths are 5 root 2, 5 root 2, 5 root 2, 5 root 2. So the perimeter is going to be 4 times 5 root 2, or 5 root 2 plus 5 root 2 plus 5 root 2 plus 5 root 2, which is going to be 20 root 2. And the area, let's erase this and make some room here. It's side squared, so the area is going to be 5 root 2 raised to the second power, which is 5 root 2 times 5 root 2. 5 times 5 is 25. Root 2 times root 2 is whole number 2. If you remember that, 25 times 2 is 4. Oh, not 4. 25 times 2 is 50. There we go. Units squared. So I put U for units because we don't know what it actually was. So 20 root 2 and 50 U squared. The sides of a rectangle are in the ratio of 3 to 5, and the rectangle's area is 135 meters squared. Find the dimensions of the rectangle. So let's draw a rectangle. The sides of a rectangle are in a ratio of 3 to 5. Remember, the minute we take the numbers out of the ratio, we're going to put an x in it. So we're going to say 3x, 5x, 3x, 5x, right? It says the area is 135. So the area of a rectangle is base times height. Well, the area, so for the A, I'm going to say 135 equals 3x times 5. We're going to multiply these together. 3x times 5x, do not tell me 15x. It's 15x squared. Let's divide by 15 on both sides. We're going to get x squared is equal to 9. To undo a square, we take the square root. So x will equal plus or minus 3, positive or negative 3, but we're going to cancel out that negative because we can't have a negative side length. So x is equal to 3. Now we want to find the dimensions. So let's go back, plug in that 3. We're going to say 9 and 15. So the dimensions are 9 by 15. Okay, so here we want to find the area. Obviously, there's no formula to find the area of this weird looking shape. So what are we going to do? Have a couple of options here. I'll do both options. So let's talk about our first option. Our first option is to close this up, draw lines to make rectangles, find the area of each rectangle, and then add them all up. So let's do that way first. So we know this whole basis. There we go. So let's start off to the furthest left. We know the base is 2, the height is 2. I'm sorry, the base is 2, the height is 6. So that means this area is 12. Now, moving on to the next rectangle, I'm going to highlight it in blue. Now this base is not 7, that whole bottom base is 7. But if you look at the yellow rectangle, in a rectangle, aren't opposite sides congruent? So if the top is 2, isn't the bottom 2? Which means this rectangle has a base of 5. Now the height. Go back to the yellow triangle again. If the left is 6, the right is 6, which means the total height has to be 8. So we're going to say 8 times 5, which is 40 for the blue rectangle. Let's keep going. Move on to the green rectangle. The base is 2. The height is not 5. The total height is 8 and the bottom's 5, which means this green rectangle has a height of 3. 3 times 2 is 6. And last but not least, look to the left. The total height of this is 8, so the total height on the right is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. So our area is going to be all of these added together, 12 plus 40 plus 6 plus 24. So our area is going to be 82 units squared. Okay, so that was one way to do this, sort of divide and conquer. The other way we can do this, we can make this into one big rectangle by closing this up, finding the area of that big rectangle, and then subtracting out those empty spaces that I'm highlighting in yellow, the area of those empty spaces that I'm highlighting in yellow. So let's do this, the area of the big rectangle. All right, so we know it's base times height. Now this is the total base. We have the 7 labeled and the 3 labeled. The top is 2 in the yellow rectangle, which means the bottom's 2. So the total base is 7 plus 2 is 9 plus 3 is 12. Now the height is going to be, if the right is 2, the left is 2 here, so the height will be 8. So the area of the big rectangle is going to be 8 times 12, which is 96. Now what I want to do is I want to find the areas of the little yellow rectangles. So the first yellow rectangle has an area of 10, the other one has an area of 4. So I'm going to take that big rectangle, which is 96, and I'm going to subtract these 2 areas from it. So minus 14, and once again, we're going to get 82 units squared. Okay, a rectangular picture measures 12 by 30 centimeters. It is mounted in a frame 2 centimeters wide. Find the area of the frame. Well, a couple of things. When it says 2 centimeters wide, that means from here to here is 2 centimeters, and from here to here is 2. So that's what those 2's represent. When I'm asking you to find the area of the frame, I'm asking you to find the area of this yellow region right here that I'm highlighting. All right, so let's think about this. We want to find the area of just the yellow part. Now, we have 2 rectangles. We have a big rectangle, we have a smaller one inside. If I find the area, remember area is inside. If I'm finding the area of the inside rectangle, it's definitely too small, too big. If I find the area of the inside, the big rectangle, backtrack. Let's rewind. Right, area is the inside. So if I'm finding the area of the big rectangle, that area is going to be too big. I just want the yellow. But then if I find the area of the little rectangle, that area is too small. I want the yellow. So how am I going to find the area of just the yellow? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to find the area of the big rectangle and subtract from that the area of the small rectangle. All right, let's figure out the dimensions of the big rectangle. We know it's base times height. Well, the small rectangle has a base of 30. And then we're going to add 2 centimeters on the right side, but we also have to add 2 centimeters on the left side. So which means the total base is not 30, not 32, it's going to be 34. Now we're going to do the same thing for the height. Now the height of the small rectangle, is 12. But then look, they told you to add 2 from the bottom to the top, from the bottom to the small rectangle, and from the small rectangle to the top. So we're going to add 2 here and 2 here, which makes a total of not 12, not 14, but 16. So the area of the big rectangle is going to be 16 times 34. And we're going to subtract from that, base times height again, of the little rectangle, 12 times 30. So we're going to have 544 minus 360 is going to be 184 centimeters squared. All right, so I want you to take a minute and I want you to find the area of the shaded region. I want you to pause. So if you can't see it very clearly, it's this similar to what the problem we just did, this inner one. But I gave you the dimensions for the big one and the small one, so you don't have to do that much extra work. So pause the video, get your answer, then play again to see how we did this. So once again, I want to find the area of the yellow region. So we're area of the big, this time it's a square. Minus the area of the small square. So we are side squared minus side squared. So we're going to say 4 squared minus 2 squared. 16 minus 4 is 12 centimeters squared. All right, moving on to our last page. Okay, the diagonal of the square is 12 root 2. So here's our square. The diagonal is 12 root 2. We want to find the perimeter. So once again, what do we have? We have a 45, 45, 90 triangle because it's a square. So we know, pull this apart. Opposite the 45s are x. Opposite the 90 is x root 2. So our equation is going to be x root 2 is equal to 12 root 2. Divide by root 2, x will equal 12. So what does that mean? That means every side has a length of 12. So the perimeter is going to be 4 times 12. So the perimeter is 48. And the area is going to be 12 squared, which is 144 units squared. All right, it says find the area and the perimeter. So to do this, I'm going to do my divide and conquer again. So I'm going to find the area of the two rectangles and then add them together. So the area of the bottom rectangle is 10 times 2, which is 20. Now, if the right side is 2, the left side is also 2, which means the height of the top rectangle is 9 minus 2, which is 7. And now this total length that I'm highlighting in red is 10. The right side is 6, and this is 4. So the area of the top rectangle is 28. So our total area is going to be 20 plus 28, which equals 48 units squared. Oh, not units, centimeters. Now the perimeter is the outside. For the perimeter, you can't divide and conquer, meaning I can't add the perimeter of the top rectangle and the perimeter of the bottom rectangle. That doesn't work. Because what's going to happen is we're going to be adding things like this 4 on the inside, which isn't part of the perimeter. Remember, the perimeter is just the outside. So how am I going to find this perimeter? Well, I'm going to draw this across to figure out, I need to find the length of this segment right here. So I'm going to draw that across, and I am going to say, well, the whole bottom of this rectangle is 10, which means the whole top is 10. So that has to be 4, which means the top is also 4. So now the perimeter, so we got 10. I'm going to work counterclockwise, plus 2, plus 6. Oops, I need another length. I need this length right here. Well, I know this whole length is 9, and I know this is 2, which means this is 2, which means this has to be 7. So we got 6 plus 7 plus 4 plus 9. So the perimeter will be, if you add those all up, 38 38 centimeters. There we go. All right, very last problem. The ratio of the length to the width of a rectangle is 9 to 4. Remember, the minute you take them out of the ratio, you want to put x with it. So we got 9x, 4x, which means 9x, 4x. The perimeter is 130. Find the area. So perimeter is 130. So I'm going to say 9x plus 9x plus 4x plus 4x equals 130. We're going to say 26x equals 130. X will equal 5. So substitute this x in. We're going to have 45, 20, 45, 20. Now we want to find the area. Well, the area is just base times height, or 45 times 20. So the area will be 900 feet squared. All right, we are done for today. We'll see you again later, or talk to you again later.